What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of THPStrength. We are on episode 38, I believe. Today we have Jordan Wesner on the podcast. If you guys don't know about Jordan Wesner, we are going to try to insert a clip before this, if you're watching it, of his bounce. I've known Jordy for, I don't know, how many years have I known you, Jordy? For 6 years?
4 years, yeah, 4 or 5 years now.
4 or 5 years? So basically the story goes, when I was a high school track coach, there was this kid named Zach Chastain. Zach is a little shit. I love him, but if you're listening to Zach, I love you. You're one of my first dedicated high school athletes I ever coached. And Zach basically was a highly motivated pole vaulter, really wanted to be Division I, didn't really have the coaching. I came in and coached him. He increased his vault, I think, like a foot or something like that in that senior year of high school. I didn't know that much about vault at the time, but I knew how to make people athletic. Got him faster and stronger. And so then he went to a small school. Then he transferred to Memphis, where he met Jordy. And I just remember him saying, bro, you got to see this guy, Jordy. He's a high jumper on the team. He's got nasty bounce. He's one of the craziest jumpers I've ever seen. He literally flies. And I was like, okay, yeah. I was like, I know the pro dunkers. Like, I know who can actually jump. Like, I don't know how good he's actually going to be. He sends me one of your high jumps. I'm like, how high was that? He's like, oh, bro, he just short approached 6'6". I was like, that's pretty good. And then he sends me some other clips. You jumping like 7 feet. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's unreal. So then I start to study more high jump. And then I get in touch with Jordy eventually because I'm learning about speed jumpers. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like Jordy's bounce is unbelievable and how quick he gets off the ground. And so now, as Jordy has grown, well, what's your PR in high jump now?
227. So 7'5" and a quarter.
7'5" and a quarter. And you're 6'4", is that right?
193, 194. Yeah. So about 6'4".
Yeah. So I know he's like an unreal high jumper. I love high jump. I know he's a speed jumper. And I'm like watching him jump more and more. And I'm like, this guy is a freak of nature. And if you guys know who Nick Briz is, Nick Briz uses the same jump strategy that Jordy uses and a lot of high jumpers use. So typically it's like what we call butt kicking or speed jumping. And you don't see a lot of basketball players do it. And you don't see a lot of basketball players do it super well. So typically guys will kind of palm the ball, run full speed, and take off. And they can do distance dunks. James White was a speed jumper for perspective. So
Jordy's like, imagine if Nick Briz was 6'4".
Yeah, and dunked on 10-foot rims.
And dunked on 10-foot.
So we want to see Jordy on that LA Fitness Waterford gym because I think people would lose their mind.
What height do you think that rim is?
Well, we know for a fact that it is.
Waterford?
Yeah.
It's like 9'8 3/4. It ranges 9'9" to like 9'8 3/4 around there. Depending on how often it's dunked on.
Jordy, do you think you could like bite the rim? Do you think you could bite the rim on that?
On 9'8", yeah. I think I could. I'm gonna say I could. If I went like this, I think I get my chin to the rim. But I have to give respect to some of the guys who do the dunks. I mean, I'm not a technical dunker. So,
yeah.
I can just jump high. But I mean, those guys are going in between the legs, behind the back on 9'8" and 9'9". I mean, that's still hella impressive, man. Like those are impressive skills in itself.
Yeah, and I think like as a 1-foot jumper, I tell Isaiah this all the time, but like changing how you like things you do with your arms, like as you go to jump, changes everything about the jump. Like it's not as simple as just like you jump off 2 feet still, right? Like you can what can you do off 2 feet for dunking?
I mean, it's completely different than one, man. I feel like dunking off 2 feet gives me more coordination or balance in the air. So I feel like if I were to practice just off 2 feet, I think I would be able to do cooler dunks, but there's no way I'd be able to jump as high as what I do off 1 foot, ever.
Yeah, because I've seen you jump off 2, and like you're a really elastic jumper off 2 feet even. Like you don't lower a lot. You have a good block foot still. You're really short ground contact time. And I remember you sending me stuff, and you like jumped over Zach off the side of the backboard or something.
Yes.
Like I mean, yeah, I don't know if I finished the story, but basically that's how I know Jordy. Side note, but yeah, so we'll kind of get into it now, but. Yeah, your 2-foot bounce is still not bad though. Like, what do you think you could touch off 2, like height-wise? 11 feet?
Yeah, I think I could definitely hit 11 feet. Maybe, yeah. I actually don't have a clue, but definitely 11 feet. 'Cause, I mean, I can dunk easily off 2 feet. 2 hands, 1 hand. It's just it's night and day difference.
Yeah.
My jump.
What's your standing vertical for the listeners as they?
Believe it or not, the last time I tested it, it probably wasn't the most accurate thing because we just used the pad. We didn't use the Vertec. It was 29 inches.
29 inches standing on a just jump mat, right, or whatever it's called, like the little mat.
Yes, just a little black mat.
Yeah. So considering though that your running vertical is, what have you taught? What do you think? So I've seen you get your head several times 2 or over 10 feet for sure. I think your vertical best ever is probably around 44. That's my guess. Like high jump, I think it's like 45, 46 on your best jumps.
Yeah. No, I would say very similar. I mean, during a high jump approach, I don't know what it is. I think it's something to do with the surface maybe. I think you just naturally jump higher with all that speed too as well. Especially when it's really warm out, you got this, your muscles are just buzzing. But yeah, I would say 45. I'd say on average 43 to 44, on the basketball court. I would say would be my first.
I feel like the thing that makes you so different too is that the speed that you take off the ground. Like anyone that watches you or Briz, and I've been telling you to do this, is that you need to get better at in-game dunking, because like you should be able to in-game dunk on people so easily because your contact time is so quick. So like you get off the floor faster than anyone can even prepare for you. Like, have you dunked on a lot of people like in games?
I think my problem is it kind of goes back to what we're saying. I'm a speed jumper. I rely a lot on speed to get off the ground that quick. So in order to do it in a game, I have to be moving. I have to be moving pretty quick. So I mean, a fast breaks obviously all the time, but whenever it comes to just driving to the basket, sometimes my step will get a little too long, and I'm on the ground forever. And yeah, I can dunk it, but it's like it's slow. It's not very good. I'm just spending way too much time on the ground versus if I was just running and just dunking.
Do those long contact jumps like ever bother your knee or anything like that? Have you ever had knee problems?
I had tendonitis in a jumper's knee in high school once. It was just because I was, first off, I was playing basketball whenever I was doing it. I was spending a lot of time on the ground. I was getting in really low positions at takeoff, and that just blew my knee, man. I mean, the whole season I was just done for. So yeah, actually I didn't even play basketball my senior year. I quit halfway through the season just because my knee was getting so bad. And once I stopped basketball, I just worked on training on the track stuff. I started to get those really fast reactions off the ground. I started focusing more on plyos, and then that's whenever I was actually be able to bounce off the ground instead of power off the ground. I would say I wasn't using my muscles anymore. I was using more tendons, what you taught me.
Yeah. So what did that feel like? Like, so you went from, I've kind of said the same thing, that like, it's very rare that you see a speed jumper on a basketball court, because like you said, like if you're a basketball player, you got to react to a defender. You typically need more time to see where they're going to be. Usually you're going to be a power jumper. You don't have the velocity that you would have that you do in a high jump, or, if you're just running full speed on a dunk, that like typically how you get the most amount of lift. So like when you were transitioning onto the track, like what did the jumps start? How did they feel in terms of like being on the basketball court? Like, did it feel like a more volitional push versus like a bounce off the ground? Like, was it that you noticed you were leaning back more? Was there anything that you really changed, or it just kind of happened from being on the surface?
So high jump and dunking to me are just, I mean, they correlate very well, but at the same time they can be completely. Whenever you're talking about in-game dunks versus just open dunks versus high jump, it's three completely different stories to me. I mean, high jump is literally, you have your power jumpers, but I mean, you don't see those at the elite level. Very, very, you don't see them very often anyways.
Yeah, not anymore, especially. I think now there's really, really a big trend towards like consistently the best jumpers at the world stage, at that level are going to be speed jumpers.
I feel like from what I've seen, when there's been power jumpers that are like elite high jumpers, those guys are like mind blowing. Like, because you have to be really like genetically gifted and like crazy to be a power jumper and high jump at an elite level. So those are some like the really freak guys I see.
Yeah, like Soto, like Hollis Conway, like those guys are. I mean, some of those guys were probably doping. Like Soto, basically was, and like, you see some of these guys that their legs are freaking tree trunks. They like are crazy stiff, and they're really long guys typically. And they don't really hit positions well. They're just freaks. Like they just like who's the short approach? The guy that short approaches everything, but he's like one of our best high jumpers right now.
In the United States?
Yeah.
Jerome Robinson?
Yeah. He's an example of that. He's just a beast.
He's just a freak, man. I think Ivan Ukov, he's bringing the heat. I mean, he tested positive for steroids, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, several times.
That guy on a basketball court, I've seen videos of him. I mean, it's not even a joke. And these are legit rims. I mean, he's getting, his shoulder to.
Dude, where's that video? I've never seen that video.
I'll find it for you, man. I've seen it before, but man, that guy is. I mean, you have to remember he's 1.94 m, so I think that's 6'4.5". Super tall guy as well, but freak, just a freak of nature. I mean,
I Matt McInnes Watson, who is actually like helping me he's writing my plyos. He's from the UK. he was telling me he jumped against Zukov once, and he's like, dude, his hands are massive. He's a massive human. He's like, dude, he's the biggest person you've ever seen. Like he's just like farm strong, but he's just crazy bounce and stuff like that. So I want to find that video though, because I've heard you tell me about that, and I've told him about that like he could get basically his chest to the rim, and it's like, no way. Like people don't think, like a lot of dunkers don't think that high jumpers have like crazy bounce. So it's kind of interesting whenever we do get a video of them like.
Oh, I mean, you gotta remember the guy's, you know, almost 6'5", and on his best jumps he has over 50-inch vertical, you know, at 6'4", you know, right around 50 inches. But I mean, like I said, that's basketball hops and high jump hops are two completely different things, because in a basketball game, I mean, I'm sure he could ball, but he would never ever get his chest to the rim in a basketball game, you know, off the dribble. I don't think you'd get anywhere near it. It's just two completely different jumps, you know. So
if you were to give like 1-footers some advice for dunking as a high jumper, and you're like, look, this is the thing that helps me get jump so much higher, would it be to palm the ball and like run fast as shit at the rim?
Not for a beginner. That's how you're gonna get hurt. You know, you're gonna get tendonitis that way because you're not doing it properly. You're not hitting the proper positions, man. You're gonna blow out your knee. You're gonna.
I pull my hamstring and bruise my heel and hurt my knee.
All at the same time.
Yeah, run fast and jump off my right leg by palming it.
That's what would happen to me if I tried running fast and jumping off one.
Isaiah tried to jump off one the other day, and it was just like a stomp, like a single leg stomp, and he went up and still dunked. I was like, oh god.
Well, it's also who's that guy? He's from Florida, Barth.
Connor Barth, yeah.
Yeah, man. I just saw some of his videos of him 1-foot jumping, and man, it just, don't get me wrong, he's getting bounced, but man, he's like spending just hours on the ground, just boom. You know, it's power. It's super powerful. You can tell, and his knee flexion is deep. But I mean, still incredible. I mean, he's got both 2-leg and 1-leg bounce. For sure.
Yeah, I've seen him touch, I think, like 11.4 off one or 11.5 off one or something like that. So he's like, he can jump. His reach is, what's his reach out there?
8'1".
8'1". Yeah, so it's like pretty similar to what yours is probably. But he's tall. So here's the thing about we're seeing this more with yourself, Dan Gross, Barth. On the Vertec, people with short arms that are really tall that can get their head up to the rim. Usually when you put them on a Vertec, they don't usually excel. Whereas like shorter guys with bigger reaches and stuff like that seem to like that don't necessarily get their head like as high relative to the rim. They hit more impressive marks on the Vertec, if that makes sense. So like Anthony Hamilton, Isaiah, Jordan Kilgannon, Jay Clark. These are guys that like have really long arms. They're tall, but they're not crazy tall. They get their head to the rim well and stuff like that, but they typically like on a Vertec, they destroy people. So I'm kind of wondering now as I like see more and more people test if there's something to that, because we tested Dan Gross and we thought Dan was gonna like max out the Vertec right away. Like when you saw him jump, like what did you think? Did you think he was just gonna?
Yeah, bro, he literally, his head is right here every single jump, no matter what. Like literally no matter what. So yeah. I was expecting him to get 12.
And his reach is exactly what yours is.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird. Like, and so Barth tested as well. Yeah, Barth tested as well. Same thing, bro. Gets his head here almost every jump on the rim. But as soon as you put him on a Vertec, multiple tests, like over the course of multiple testing periods, always touches 11.8, 11.9. Doesn't touch any higher than that. So it's like, so there's kind of something to it. We don't fully understand that, but it's funny because you're kind of the same way, right? Like your arms are a little bit shorter relative to your height, but what's the highest you've touched? 11.8 or something? 11.9?
Dude, I don't think I've touched higher than 11.6. I'm serious.
No, this doesn't make sense. That's what like Dan touched like 11.7.
Yeah, it's
like,
the weirdest. But like you guys are obviously getting like your head's at the rim on 10 feet. Like
yeah,
Dan's the same way. Dan touched 11.7. Dan literally he did a 360 scoop on 10.5.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a beast.
See that video? You guys are gonna have to say that's incredible.
Yeah, did he post it? I think he posted
it.
Yeah, we'll definitely show you it afterwards. But so it's kind of funny. But the thing is, when I watch speed jumpers, though, like, you guys get off the ground so quickly. So, like, are you trying to get off the ground quickly? Like, are you just running fast? Like, how did you develop that? How did you learn how to do that?
So I think that all started, that takes time. I think that's, first off, I'm not going to lie, there's a big, large genetic, I mean, with any event, any sport, but I mean, genetics does come a factor into that. But me, I can remember it started probably in 5th or 6th grade. I was just always trying to touch stuff. like every day I would just like, I saw a branch on a tree and I'm like, I'm going to try to touch that, And looking back, I think all that actually correlated to what I am today because it made me what I've been training like that since fifth, sixth grade, I've been training for that like every single day almost, I'll just go run as fast as I could and jump. I didn't even think about it. But now it's so obvious that whenever you have a good jump versus a bad jump to me, because exactly what you're saying, it's fast off the ground. Whenever you spend time on the ground, I probably lose 6-7 inches on my vertical, because you're spending that much time on the ground. You're using more muscles. Exactly what you're saying. My standing vert might be under 30 inches, but I'm not a power athlete. I know it sounds kind of crazy. I'm not that powerful. I'm not that fast. I'm not that good of a sprinter. So I don't really use my muscles. I think I use more tendons. If you ever watch me jump, you'll see my knee flexion's nothing. I mean, it's almost stiff sometimes at takeoff. It's like a pogo stick. Whereas 2-foot jumpers such as Isaiah himself, he's still pretty stiff on the takeoff, but he has greater knee flexion. He's also a 2-foot jumper though.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same with 1 foot for me too. Like I'm bending my knee a lot, and then I'm like
pushing with your muscles. You can tell you're pushing with your muscles. But I think the only downside to that is that can lead to a lot of injuries. Spending that much time on the ground, it's a lot of force on your muscles and your tendons.
So what's crazy is that the peak forces for you is way higher. Like your peak forces are way higher. So generally you assume, well, if I take my car and I drive at 200 miles an hour versus 100 miles an hour and I wreck it into a tree, 200 miles an hour is more dangerous. But that's not exactly how the mechanics work in jumping. Like peak forces, like if you throw a jab or something like that, shout out boxing, Jordy's a boxer. We'll get into that in a little bit because I have questions about that. But, if you throw a jab, something real quick, like you can get a shit ton of force really, really quick, super high peak forces on it. But the overall impulse in terms of how long that force was applied and changing momentum might not be as high as if you throw an absolute haymaker, into someone's face and wind up and get a super long push as hard as you can and try to throw them across the ring. The overall total, if you were to total the force over the whole time, the haymaker probably going to have more impulse as a whole, whereas your jab, your peak forces are way higher. But for whatever reason, in muscle tendon mechanics, when you have those long force outputs and it does become more muscular, there does seem to be like maybe the tendon stretching longer, or maybe, that's like you have a softer tendon. This is what I actually think. I think the tendon's softer and therefore it can stretch more, which is like if you stretch a rubber band more, you're going to get more force out of it, right? So tendons are like extension springs. You stretch them and they shorten in like your knee joint. If this is the extension spring, it stretches between my fingers. Imagine there was a spring and then it shortens quickly and you get a lot of force from it. If you have a stiffer spring, you don't have to stretch it as much. You get a shit ton of force and you're going to jump really high. So I think like this for Isaiah or myself, we have softer tendons. We need that knee bend to load up our tendons. Like that's the only way our tendons are going to get as much energy as yours does.
But through that, it's like all the compressive forces, it's stretching
like,
over.
You get compression, you get the tensile forces, the pulling forces of stretching it further. And tendons are cross-linked. So like they have these like, I don't know if they're sugars or exactly what they are, but they basically interlink and they pull apart, store energy, and then they release it. Well, if you rely more on that tendon to produce force, you're either going to stretch it more or you're going to have stiffer cross links, And so I think for you, what tends to happen is your tendons are so stiff that it doesn't take, you pull them a little bit, and you get a ton of force, like a ton of force. Our tendons are not as stiff, so we have to pull them further and longer, stretching it out to get even something comparable, which I think is obviously why it tends to be a little bit more, seem more muscular. And it is because the muscle has to stretch to pull the tendon and stretch it apart as well, because it's pulling on the tendon and pulling it apart as the momentum is also stretching it. So, all those things kind of play together to interplay to load up the tendon more or less. So that can be a confusing concept for people, but that's one of the things I do actually think is part of it. So that's part of it. And I think the other thing is the neural end is you're incredibly wired as an athlete. Like, what was your best 800 time and what was the highest accolade you had in boxing?
So 159 was my best ever 800 run.
And you didn't train for it like at all?
No, I really didn't. I mean, the basketball court was kind of where I lived even in the high school season, I just trained on the basketball court. That's what I did because I had a great high school coach. He's an awesome guy, but there's you only know so much at a certain level, you know what I mean? But so 159 in the 800, and then what was the next question?
And then boxing, like, how did you get into boxing, and what were some of the accolades you had in that, or how good are you?
So my dad actually is the one who got me into boxing. I mean, I've been boxing since I was 5 years old. Yeah, that's whenever I started boxing. He just taught me to have fast hands, you know. He's like, just be fast, you know. It's kind of fun. You know, I've had quite a few amateur fights, 16-0 actually as an amateur. It was yeah, at the time it was either you're getting your school paid for, or you're gonna try the the boxing career. And my mom obviously made me go the school route, which I'm very happy I did.
You didn't like the idea of you getting hit in the face like a lot?
Yeah, it's different, man. It's a different it is, man. But it's a beautiful sport. You know, it takes kids who got into trouble, and you don't have to go to college. You don't have the NCAA involved. It's just there, man. And you don't have to have the grades to go to. No, there's no one telling you can't do it. You can just go out there and do it.
Yeah.
Make life out of it for sure.
That's pretty wild. Have you ever been in a fight outside of a boxing ring?
I mean, in school, I used to get into fights all the time, man. Like,
you're like the nicest guy I know.
I know, man. I used to have a temperament, man. I used to have a really bad temper. I mean, I was always a really big kid too. Not big, just tall. I was always a tall, skinny kid. So kids used to make fun of my size, which was probably a bad idea on their part. I don't know if they would do that. But, yeah, I used to get in some fights, some little fights at school.
So
those days are over, man.
how like old were you when you had your first fight?
Jeez, no, I can remember on the playground, second grade. I mean, second grade, just fighting with kids.
You like knocked some teeth out for these kids, like?
Yeah, actually, I did. I didn't get expelled from school. I was suspended. I got suspended for a week back in second grade, actually, elementary, because I mean this kid was bothering me, man, and I didn't know how to control my anger at the time, man, and I just popped him. This is a jab, But when you're younger, you have looser teeth and stuff like that.
Or you hit him really hard.
Yeah. Either one, man. I don't know, but no, boxing is definitely something good to learn, and I think going back to what you were saying earlier, man, with the whole just throwing a jab out there, really quick, or versus a haymaker. I see it time and time again with kids who are power jumpers. I've been to countless track meets at this point, 5 years, but every kid I know who's a power jumper, they have tendonitis. Every single high jumper. It's not even a joke. Every single high jumper, triple jumper, those who aren't bringing speed into that jump always have some kind of knee issues. Always.
Yeah.
I just see it countless times, man. It's weird.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that at one point, and that was so like you were one of the motivations for listeners. Like Jordy was one of the motivations, even more than Nick Briz. Before Nick Briz, he was the one that made me want to try to learn to be a speed jumper because I had this chronic problem. I had knee problems, which was related to load and me just jumping too much, as well as being a power jumper and kind of swooshing the takeoff a little bit. And we've seen a lot of power jumpers just end their career purely because of tendinopathy. Like you have Charles Austin. You have the guy that did the straddle from Russia.
Yes, I forgot his name.
Yevchenko.
Yeah.
They all ended their career because of tendinopathy.
Yep, tendinopathy ended their career. Like Charles Austin, his highest jump ever. If you talk to him and his son and stuff like that, like he didn't even care about technique. Like literally, Charles Austin purely functioned off of hype. He was just like, I'm gonna jump high at all costs. I don't care how bad my knee is. I refuse to lose. Like it was like. We were watching this Michael Jordan documentary. That's his mentality. Was just like win at all costs.
That was literally me in dunk competitions from like 19 to 20, like 18 to 20. Bro, there was times where like it hurt to walk, and then the contest starts and like adrenaline, you don't feel your knee pain, and then afterwards it starts again.
You're like game over.
Yeah,
done.
That's crazy because like every dunker that I know has had some kind of like issue with tendinopathy.
And the people that don't, guess what? Nick Briz, you.
Speed jumpers.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like crazy to kind of think about that and so like after practicing speed jumping a little bit, I do get some knee problems with it. I probably jump more than most people though. I will say that like there seems to be like I've been realizing this more and more and more. When you look at really good speed jumpers, they get this perfect alignment. I think there's a couple consistencies. I don't know if you know that you do this, but one, they plant across the midline. The second is that they use their hip because they plant across the midline. 3, they don't bend their knee. Most of the angulation happens at the pelvis. And 4, it seems to be more of a lateral action more than just a straight on sagittal movement. So like sprinting is like this, right? Like mostly straight ahead. Your pelvis does rotate a little bit, but like for the most part, it's like this. If you jump, like, I don't know, Jordy, you know how you plant on the side of your foot, you kind of turn your foot outwards? You never. Really? You never really thought about that at all, have you?
Never until you mentioned it. And then I started watching my videos, and every single time it like rolls off that side of the foot. Like,
so do you feel that ever, like planning on the side of your foot, or?
It almost grosses me out at this point because it's so stiff. Like it just like blink. It's just off. It really is, man. I never noticed that until you said it. But yeah, it's like crazy how stiff those tendons are down there. It's just like doink.
Yeah,
because it literally looks like feet are gonna break. Like it's just like,
no, man, it's kind of like now I'm like scared. I'm like almost scared every time I high jump. I'm just thinking about it. I'm like, whoa.
Well, maybe this is the time. I think too, like watching you jump. If you watch your hip, like the way that you use your hip and the angle that you always jump, like your best jumps will always come from an angle, right? Like you always coast across the rim. You don't jump towards the rim. It's always like, if this is you come across it, like diagonal across it. And that's the same way I am on my best 1 foot jumps. So like, have you noticed that? And like, have you ever thought about that or what?
Yeah, I mean, you're the one who pointed it out for me, but then I started thinking about it. And I'm like, well, exactly with the vertec, what we're saying is I've never done a vertec like that where you block across. It's essentially a block. It's a high jump block. So you're blocking that energy and going up versus with the jump. So like on my free throw line dunks, I don't go up. Like I can't go up because I'm going out. So whenever you reach across your body and go around like a high jump block, all that energy, all that speed is trying to go up. It's actually forcing you to go up instead of out. So that, that's where I notice it. Because I try to dunk from the other side of the rim, and I can't do it. Like I can't block because my knee's not the front. My knee's not coming across my body. It's going with the body, so I can't jump up. So I can literally only dunk from the left side of the rim.
Like so that's I am too, and I tell people that. I try to tell them like, bro, you don't understand. It's different. Like, and I've realized that high jumpers have that problem all the time. Like, if you watch Sutherland and Guy, they don't do that. Like, they can go from any angle. Zeus, they go from any angle. They don't really use their hip, but not. They more like roll through it and push up actively with their quad. Like it's way different jump strategy. Yeah, it's 1 foot jumping. Yeah, it's power jumping, but it's not even like power jumping the way high jumpers do it. Like it's like a roll. Like if you watch Sutherland, he bends his knee, but it plants bent and it stays bent, and he just rolls over his knee. Like his hip just rolls over his knee and his tibia and his foot. And like if you watch you from the back, I don't know, I've showed you this several times, but if you watch your hip, like you look at your glutes, they literally fire, and you see your left one.
It's coming out.
Yeah, so it's like your right one rotates up really, really hard and like towards basically across the midline almost. And you get that more when you come across from the side. Like your best jumps ever where you hit that perfect alignment too. Have you ever thought about that, the alignment thing, or does it just happen naturally?
Everything just kind of happens, man. I don't really, like I said, I'm just running fast, stick the plant and ball off from there. Really, that's what it is. Just go up. But no, I know what you're saying, man, because like whenever you jump, you almost, I guess it's a high jump takeoff from the left side of the rim for me. It's exactly like a high jump takeoff because I don't know how to, like, I don't know if I can show, but it's like, it's kind of weird, man. You spin upwards like that. You're driving up and you're kind of spinning on like an axis almost. Exactly. Like that. You're rotating up versus out, man. It's totally different.
So when you do your distance dunks, like, do you ever think about, here's another question for you. I always love these questions, like what you think about or what it feels like, because as someone trying to learn how to do that on the right foot for years and it's just not quote unquote happening for me, I'm always like, well, what do you think about? What does it feel like? All those things, because I want to be good enough to know how, okay, Jordy doesn't think about it, but can I take someone like myself and get them to think about certain things to get the same outcome that you get, So like, do you, I wish I could remember exactly what my question was before I was explaining. Oh, do you ever think about where you plant your foot, like whether it's like out in front or under you or anything like that when you're doing distance dunks versus like for height?
I don't think about it, but I can tell. I can tell the big difference whenever it happens. So like distance dunks, you have to be able to carry that speed. So first off, if I'm reaching out too far, I'm losing so much speed. I'm blocking, and I'm trying to go up on a too sharp of an angle, basically. And I lose so much speed in either A, I go straight up and I lose all my speed and I come right back down, basically, or B, I blow my knee straight out of the front of my leg. One of two things are going to happen when you have that much speed. So, I mean, basically, whenever I do distance dunks, it's completely opposite from a height dunk. I'm trying to roll off the jump instead of block. It's like a long jump versus a high jump. I'm trying to roll with the speed, go out, can carry that speed like a skipping stone as far and as fast as I can.
Yeah.
I don't even like distance dunks because it doesn't feel like I'm jumping very high. You know, it's like this and not like going up and then straight back down. Yeah.
How many steps do you think you take on the foul line dunks or from the elbow?
So I actually make a tape measure out. I do 36 feet, 6 steps I just run my high jump approach.
That's actually amazing. That's what you
awesome.
do. That's what you do for the distance dunks?
Yeah, I'll make a video on that actually. That'd be interesting. But yeah, I just do my skip into 6 steps and then I just push as hard as I can out. Just jump.
So what's funny is on the vertex jumps that I do, like my absolute highest jumps, I actually have a hard time replicating it on an outdoor court without enough space because I do the same thing. My approach, my skip in or gallop in 5-step approach, so I gallop in on my right and go left, right, left, right, left, is 30 feet back from the takeoff and 6 feet wide. So like that is my gallop in 5-step approach. So yours is 36. How wide do you go from that?
For the high jump?
No, when you do your distance dunks, like how wide do you go out, or do you just measure the distance back?
Just straight back.
Oh, okay. You just come from kind of an angle. So it's probably pretty similar to what mine is, honestly. It's probably like 6 feet wide of where you jump from.
Yep.
That's actually crazy. And you do 6 steps. Well, that's crazy. Our sides are not that different. We're basically bro.
Yeah, same house, bro.
We're basically the same. So I've been playing around with long jump takeoffs recently too, and like one of the big things I noticed is that like when I long jump takeoff, it's like flat, and it's directly under my hips, and like that's like literally what I cue myself is like, okay, just flat, directly under my hips, and I have this beautiful speed jumper takeoff every single time, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, I can do like 4 strides and just like boop boop, and I just float off the ground, perfect takeoff, like everything looks great, and then I go into high jump, and it's like I feel like if I were to try to do that, I wouldn't get any lift, and I just like wouldn't rotate. Even though like in long jump you have forward rotation, I feel like if I did that on a high jump apron, like it just like wouldn't happen, you know? And what's weird is like when I speed jump off my right, it's more natural for me to like high jump than it is for me to like go and practice dunking. Like I feel like I would get better at dunking by just high jumping more than I would practicing dunking with my right foot. Like I don't know how else to explain that. So did you notice like what helped what more? Do you think that high jumping helped your dunking more or that dunking helped your high jump more?
Wow, that's a really good question. Dunking helped the high jump.
Oh, that's a hot take.
Yeah, no, I would say for sure, man, because I mean, I can't, there's no way I could say a difference because I think if you really do compare the takeoffs in a high jump in a dunk for a 1-foot speed jumper anyways, not 2 feet obviously, I think you would see extremely similar positions. In fact, you do see very similar positions.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as the in-air mechanics, obviously completely irrelevant, but the takeoffs are very similar. Anyways, for me, they are. If you do a side-by-side analysis, I would assume I lean back, I'm blocking from the rim. It's probably almost identical at the takeoff. So definitely dunking has correlated into my high jump.
When you were young, did you always palm the ball? Because I've noticed like speed jumpers oftentimes always do this curl and press action. So typically they have really good ball control. They always hold the ball by their shoulder. They press up, turn, and can put the ball upwards. And the second thing I noticed is a lot of speed jumpers will say that they just ran really fast. They didn't think about anything. They just ran really fast to the rim, but they always did that like curl and press action, or they were always palming the ball. And so after doing it a bunch of times off the dribble, like you said, it's so hard to get into position to speed jump. And that's why Briz is so impressive, is because Briz can get into takeoff position with one dribble and speed jump. And it's like, how the hell do you do that? Like, I can do it, but I don't jump crazy high. I can maybe dunk on like a 9-8 rim on my left leg is maybe the best I've ever done. So it's really difficult for me. And whereas like, is that how you kind of learn? That's how Pat Dickert learned as well. He just was like, yeah, I was working on layups. I was a little kid. I just ran as fast as possible. I noticed that I ran faster, I jumped higher.
Right. I mean, it's a funny story. I mean, dunking completely ruined my basketball career, as funny as that sounds. Instead of focusing on actually dribbling and shooting. And
oh, yeah, same.
I mean, I was just like, exactly what you're saying. I palmed the ball like this. I didn't dribble. I literally just ran, and that's all I did all practice. I just wanted to jump as high as all I wanted to do is dunk. So I would start off with just a girl's ball because I could palm it. I just put it right here, run as fast as I could, and just go up every single time. It was just like, now it's just clockwork. I don't even think about it. It's just every single time. Right arm comes up, right knee comes up, dunk the ball. Same with the high.
That's actually so epic. It makes me want to practice dunking more with a small ball. Just running fast. How did you start your approaches from pretty far out doing that, or no?
Yeah, it was. Man, when I first started dunking, man, it would be like half court, like jog into half court, and then I just like stutter stepping, and then just, like,
how often did you dunk? How often did you dunk when you were doing that?
Oh, every day in practice.
The dunk every day program, bro. That's what we do.
Everybody good at dunking does it.
Every day. But the problem with that is now, anyways, once you get to our elite level, let's be real, elite level athletes, you're putting so much more force into the ground. I couldn't dunk every single day. I would hurt myself. But as a kid, I was putting half the force I am now into the ground, so I could do it every day. But at this level, no, I don't believe you could dunk every day. Anyways, definitely not maximum effort. No way, not even close.
Yeah.
That's why it's tough for guys that are older that are just getting into jump training.
Yes.
Because like you kind of have a window, like when you're young, like you have like a window of time where it's like, all right, jump every day. Like this is when you do it. And then, but you have to, if you miss the window, you're kind of out of luck. Like unless you're like freaky, like in terms of health, like you just can't get hurt. Like you have to do it when you're younger.
Yeah, I've definitely like experienced that myself trying to learn how to speed jump. Like I almost missed the like physiological adaptations that I needed to have as a little kid for a lot of those things to just naturally occur as a speed jumper. Like I think had I started long jumping more instead of high jumping, and I think like had I done what you did and just started palming the ball and running full speed at the rim from half court, probably would have had a similar response to it. But because I like always power jumped and because I always did it off the dribble, I never didn't dribble the ball and I didn't dunk on low rims. It was like I always was like, I can't palm the ball. I shouldn't use a small ball. I want to just be as legit as possible. I want to do it exactly like the best guys do. In reality, developmentally, that wasn't the best thing for me. I lost all the motor control that a speed jumper gains, by using a small ball, palming it, running full speed.
I actually used to use a small ball. I stopped using a small ball pretty early on because like I started being able to dunk like a regular size basketball when I was 16. But before that, I would use like a soccer ball and like I would like try to get it in and stuff like that. Over time, it got to the point where I could like palm like a regular basketball and like I would try to do it that way. But yeah, before that, I was using like soccer balls, dodgeballs, volleyballs, that type of thing.
Yeah. So it's interesting, like looking back at all that, the motor learning. I always tell people this. I'm like, dude, speed jumpers happen upon it. Like if you're a basketball player, likely not going to be a speed jumper. Like there's predispositions. You got stiff tendons. Likely you might have a predisposed to do it. But like a lot of the time, it's just people that. Because like you look at Pat Dickert, right? Pat Dickert is one of the best examples of this. Pat is a speed jumper on his right leg and a power jumper off his left leg. His power jumping is around the same as mine. He probably can touch 11.2, 11.3. He's 6'1", 6'2". He can't really do anything crazy on that leg, but he gets up off power jumping, dunks off that leg more often. Speed jumping, he just goes outside one day, sprints full speed at the rim, and now he can jump from the foul line and dunk. He can do a foul line dunk, and he's a 6-foot dude. On a 6'1" or something like that, on a 10-foot gym or 10-foot rim, legit, did long jump more so than anything else. And his speed jumping is beautiful. Like it's crazy, so fast. Like he can do a full approach. Yeah. So it's like, I'm like, man, there's definitely a genetic portion to it, but it's more motor learning to me than anything else. Because like you look at Pat and you look at his strengths, his numbers across the board are almost the same as mine. Like his long jump capabilities and my long jump. He long jumps a little bit farther than me. I didn't really work on long jump. But you look at his power jumping, all the things that I did and he did, like that I worked on from as a kid, are almost exactly the same. So for me, I was like, there's no reason why I can't learn to be a speed jumper, because if Pat can do it with basically the same genetics, you see his legs aren't different. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like one leg was endowed with stiffer tendons and the other one wasn't, like. So it's like, okay, it's the same person. This is the control, the same genetics, but this leg was always a speed jumper. This leg was always a power jumper. So if you get enough reps with that speed jumper leg, then you should be able to do it. And I actually argue if you want to become a speed jumper and you want to learn how to do it, use your off leg, because your off leg doesn't have the power jumping motor learning in there, So like, and we also see that your motor learning changes as you get fatigued and even within a session, like your jump strategy will change. So for me, I think like I've had sessions I can speed jump off my right and my left because motor learning wise, I know how to do it, but I always pull my hamstring on my left. And when I do jump off it, it is actually pretty good. It looks sick, but again, always pull my hamstring off it. And I sometimes revert back to power jumping. I can't keep it like a distinct thing, because I do both. And so it's really hard for me to like always be consistent with one. So moving to the right leg, it always made it easier, but yeah, it's always kind of interesting to talk about it. A lot of people don't and for those of you that are listening that don't know what speed jumping is, if you watch someone at toe off of their penultimate step, their heel recovers towards their butt. Jordy didn't even know he was a speed jumper until I told him.
No, literally. I think you made two interesting topics there, though. The first one is in basketball, 1 foot jumpers versus 2 foot jumpers. And then secondly, you got to take the proper steps. You know, you can change your genetics basically. You can make yourself a jumper. You know, if you start and take the proper steps from a young age. But firstly, 1 foot versus 2 foot. In a basketball setting, I would have to say a 2 foot jumper. You know, if I were just to play basketball, a 2 foot jumper would be higher beneficial.
See, that's what every basketball player. I always thought the same thing. Every basketball player says the reverse. Like Isaiah, in-game dunks. If you could jump off one as a power jumper, don't you think it'd be easy to get more? Well, not for you, but do you think most hoopers feel that?
Now, honestly, this is what I'll say. This is what I'll say.
Yeah.
People always say the other plant that they are. As a like a 1 foot jumper that's a basketball player is always gonna say that they want to be a 2 foot jumper, and then as a 2 footer you always want to say 1 footer, because 2 foot you got the benefit of you don't need a long ass approach. Right. You can just say drop step or the 1-2. But then I always find myself in the situation where I'm running fast as shit and somebody's chasing me, or or you're cutting across the lane and I have way too much speed to jump off too. It's really hard to get that timing. So those are situations I always find myself in, and I'm like, damn, if I was a 1 foot jumper, I could have just taken off and been in rhythm. So
yeah, but I feel like 1 foot, it's scary to dunk off 1 foot in traffic because you're not on balance. You're so off balance.
And people's feet are in the way. And the ball, people can swipe the ball so easily.
See, that's something I don't even understand, because I don't jump high enough off one to
the problem I always had is as a 1 foot jumper that was a high jumper, like Jordy was saying, you have to, unless you jump crazy high, you have to come from a certain angle to get the peak of your jump. So that's one thing. Then you need an open lane to run your steps, your approach. You can't weave, you can't cut. You have to run a straight line.
You need at least 2 solid steps to gain that speed. Exactly, at least.
You can't change momentum. It's got to be in that direction.
Yeah.
And then the other problem is now the ball is low and sweeping through a pretty long time.
You can see it. Yep, it comes through here. Exactly. Versus
people What I will say is more beneficial is maybe not being freaky at one plant. I think it's important to whether you're a 1 foot or 2 footer, being able to use, if you're a 2 footer, a right left and a left right, or if you're a 1 footer, to be able to use your left and right leg. I feel if you can do the opposite plant, then it's easier to get in-game dunks, because then you can just go at whatever angle you want.
I think that's true too. And the only downside with that is, one, it's really hard to develop that unless you're really long. If you're long, it's easy. It's honestly not hard. It's pretty simple. But if you are a shorter guy, I'm 5'11", my reach is 8 feet, but on a 10-foot rim, it's going to take me a while to get up in the air. And can I dunk off my right leg off my left hand? I think I've done it one time on a 9 with a small ball. I've done it on 10-1 actually. And 2 foot, I've dunked a handful of times on 10. Right, left, right, I've dunked as well. But again, it's it takes a lot of time for me to produce enough impulse to get up in the air, and it has to be from a specific angle and stuff, where I think his vert is so high that a suboptimal jump for as long as he is, he can still get 33 inches from any plant and be able to do one hand.
So I've sent, especially in games, I've sent John some really shitty jumps, terrible jump strategies, and I'll dunk and I'll be like, yo, John, look, I was long short.
Yeah, because basketball, it's more about having the options to use whatever.
Because my mindset when I'm playing a basketball game, because it's gotten to the point, not to my own horn, but it's gotten to the point, I told John this, all my points are scored purely off of dunks.
Yeah.
It's high percentage. I don't trust myself shooting an open shot anymore. I don't even trust myself making a layup. If I'm that's gonna be high percentage is dunks. And then my mindset when I'm playing, it's not to be in an optimal position. It's just dunk the ball. So I'm not thinking all right, make sure I get my penultimate step extended. Whatever position I'm in, I'm gonna just get up. Yeah, just try to kill everybody.
Here's a human. I will jump over him and put the ball.
Yeah. So that mentality is I've had some ugly jump technique on a lot of jumps when I'm in a game. I'll jump stop. I'll freaking.
But that's like the thing is like you still can dunk no matter what in any of those situations. Like,
and that's where I go back to why I think a 2-foot jumping would be much more valuable in a basketball setting. Is because you can jump from so many more positions versus a 1-foot jumper. You need a little bit of speed. And a lot of times in basketball, you'll catch yourself not having that much speed in certain a lot of positions.
And it's probably a lot more dangerous jumping off one when getting into a bad position. Like if you're going laterally or something like that, or like something gets like
it's
tweaked
scary.
a little bit.
Like you're really scared to put your foot down when someone's foot is there. Like people step in front of you. They don't care. Like people will step in front of you on a 1-foot dunk, and you are gonna bust them in the fucking chin with the ball in your fist, or your knee's gonna go in their face. Your knee's gonna go in their face. Like
what's awesome
you're
is,
like, I don't want to do that to them. Like
what's awesome is hearing Guy Dupuis talk about in-game dunks, because I hooped with them a lot when I was in Australia. It's something I wasn't supposed to be doing.
It's fun to watch though. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, but I hooped with him a lot, and like when he gets angry, he's like, oh man, I'm gonna use my 1 foot. I'm gonna knee him in the face. Like he's always like, it always works. Like if they get in front of me, I'm just gonna knee him in the face. Like,
bro, you have to have that mentality for 1-foot dunking on people. Like Briz is interesting because Briz will turn his body, so like his knee's up, but he does what you do. He drives the knee across really well, so he'll put a hip into their face, and like people move. They're like, bro, he's running fast. He can dribble a ball really well, really good ball control, and gets into perfect takeoff position really fast. That's what makes him so freaky. So like when he bodies people, he just like his hip's there. So he's always protected because like his hip leads the jump. Like his I guess it would be his right hip?
Yeah.
His right hip is always right there.
And he always has the ball like on this side. He'll go up and then like kind of grab it with two. Like when you see him dunk, it's usually in games, it's 2 hands and it's like this type of thing.
Yeah.
So he's like kind of like jumping up like this, and then like he's like jumping up, leading with his hip, puts the ball here, and then like does that type of thing.
Yeah, and I think like for me, I kind of always use a 2-foot block, swing the ball up, and go this direction.
You're putting it right where the
exactly. So the defender's right there, and I'm like, this is difficult. And I need like a lot of speed. I need that lane to be open. Like I think now going back, if I were to be in high school or something, I would just position myself there all the time. Like the other thing is in high school, I played 4. I'm never in position to dunk other than off 2 feet. Like I was taller as a kid, so people are gonna put me there. Now it's like, okay, in high school, you're not good at basketball. All you like to do is jump, and you can only dunk really well from this angle. So like, all we have to do is pass you the ball. I know now after I wasn't even practicing dunking. I trained for high jump. I didn't even practice dunking really. You dunked more than I did for sure as a kid. So like for me, it was like now looking back in game, if I don't really play in game stuff, and my handles are better now and stuff like that. I think literally if I wanted to get dunks, I would just stand right at the corner of the 3-point line, wait there, take one dribble on a fast, like play 2 or 3, stand right there and just like play guard, grab ball, one dribble, go up one-hander. Like that's what it would have to be every single time. You know what I mean? Like my steps would have to be consistent, stuff like that, to get those in-game dunks. Whereas Isaiah's like, yeah, I'll go from anywhere. I don't care. I can dunk off the dribble. I can dunk without the dribble. I can dunk from a standstill. Like, I mean, obviously his vertical is like 8 inches higher than mine, but
I mean, that changes as my vertical went up, that became different. Because when I was in high school, it was a completely different story. When I was in high school, like, it was funny because I was starting to be able to do windmills and, like, back from between the legs, but it was just because I had really good, like, dunk technique. My vertical wasn't that high. And so I would be doing all this stuff, like in practices, like, warm-ups and stuff like that. In-game could not dunk to save my life. And it was because I was so used to starting from the left side of the hoop, and I could only dunk if you give me the 5 steps. Like, if you start me there and give me the 5 steps, I can windmill. But in a basketball game, if it's a fast break, I'm running way faster than I'm used to. Or you're starting with the ball off a drop step. I can't dunk off a drop step that well. So it was, like, very, like, everything had to be exact for me to get it done.
Specificity, man.
Yeah. But as I got better, as my vertical got higher, like, you can use suboptimal jump strategies to get up. So
George,
what are we gonna settle a conclusion as? 1 foot or 2 foot for basketball?
I think it's
after hearing
jump
this,
high.
after this discussion, I would say 2 foot's probably more useful.
Yeah.
And then jump high.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is jump high and know probably I would say 2 foot, and then
either
really
jump high.
Yeah, jump high.
Or be able to be versatile with your plants.
Yeah, be versatile with your plants. Have a lot of options. Like, it's more really have a lot of options. If you're trying to just body people, have a lot of options. Work on 1 foot and 2 foot. Practice those. Yeah. Practice from every angle, just one-handers. Every angle, one-handers, every plant. Be able to do that. Yeah. Practice with a chair in the way. Practice it with the behind it. Like, Dan Back talks about it a lot. in-game dunking on people, bodying people, does not happen in a traditional approach like a dunker has it. Like, it's zigzagging. It's one step long power jump. You don't get a full, like, Briz is one of the only people, every dunk he has, though, is a fast break.
It's interesting.
Every dunk's a fast break.
Billy from Dunkademics, the guy who runs Dunkademics, he always says that dunking on people is more about how good of a basketball player you are than being freaky. It's about, well, were you able to beat your defender? All right, now there's a guy right there. Can you put yourself in position to jump your highest? Like, and that comes from being a good basketball player. That's why the people who are usually the best at bodying people in the NBA and stuff like that are the all-stars, the best players in the NBA. There's guys like Gerald Green that jump freaky, but you don't see them like necessarily bodying people as much. Like, they're freaky when you get them in the open and like, or an alley-oop or something like that. But when it comes to actually dunking on people, it's like you gotta be a good basketball player.
I agree with that. What are you gonna say, Jordy?
I think another. I mean, it's not jumping in basketball isn't all about dunking. You know, there's rebounds is a huge aspect of it, and how many times are you rebounding off 1 foot?
You're never gonna.
I can't even think one time I've rebounded off 1 foot unless I'm running in and trying to dunk over someone. But that's not a rebound, you know. You're just
sick.
Yeah, exactly.
Although I will say one of the freakiest jumps I've ever seen. I showed John this the other day. LeBron, someone threw him a lob. I don't know if you've seen this, Jordy. Someone threw him a lob, and it was like way to the side, not even close.
Yeah.
And he just takes off one and guys it like this. His head's like right here on the rim.
Yeah, dude. That's like one of the highest jumps of all time, and like quote unquote, man. Like that's just crazy in NBA history, man. And what do you think? What do you think LeBron's like max vert is? Like, honestly,
we were talking about this yesterday, and looking at Isaiah tests versus LeBron, and like looking at what they're capable of, and like after Isaiah knowing how hard it is to hit certain numbers on a vertex, like knowing how high he jumps and what he can do and what LeBron can do and how big he is and like all that stuff, I think we agreed like 42. You think 43? Is that what you said?
42 to 44. Well, you say a little lower than what I use. I think I think he could hit 44.
That's what I was gonna say. I think
it's like best jumps ever, in his prime off 1 foot, the perfect takeoff. I don't know, bro. Like, again, look at the head thing does not matter. Like, Dan gets his head to the rim all the time and only touched 11.7. Like, LeBron's long as shit, gets his head to the rim and stuff like that off one, maybe a handful of times. Like, on a vertex, I bet you LeBron could have touched he could have touched like 12.6 probably, I think. But what's his reach? 8.9 or some shit?
It's like
10.
So like, it's ridiculous.
Like touching the rim.
Yeah, it's like okay, yeah, like you're tall, you can get your head to the rim. Of course, we see 6'4" guys do that all the time. Your reach is huge. Yeah, okay, sweet. But say you touch 12.6 or whatever. Well, if you have a 9 foot reach, let's just say he has a 9 foot reach for the simplicity of the math. 9 foot to 12 foot is what? 36 plus 2, 38. Give him another. Let's give him 4 inches, 42. Like on his best jumps ever on a vertex, I think he'd test 42, 41, 42.
I'd agree with that.
I think that's what he'd test. I think maybe he's at 44 once.
And it goes along with his hang time. We did the hang time, the frames per second on that freaky jump, and it was like 0.9 seconds.
Yeah, it wasn't even that long.
Which equates to like a 40.
So here's the other thing: is 1 foot you'll land in a better position usually. But yeah, I think 0.9 is less than that. But if you add how he landed and stuff, it ends up being like a 42, 43. So like I think that's probably the best ever that he hit. A lot of people might disagree with that, but yeah, I think based on what I can observe, that's probably what it is. So yeah, that's kind of my opinion. Jordy, I have two questions for you, and then if you have questions for Isaiah, you can ask them. So I want to know about Patrick Pyle. Is that how you say his last name?
Patrick Piles, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to know about how your balance increased after high school, what you did, what Patrick had you doing, and what you felt like worked and didn't work.
Well, Patrick was my second coach in Memphis. I've had 5 total, one every year.
Shout out NCAA.
Yeah, man. It was rough, but I mean, I've learned a lot from every coach. You know, David Quack was my first coach. Great coach, great guy. Just heavy in the weight room. You know, big weight room guy. Which I mean, I can't say that didn't benefit me because man, I improved 2.5 inches my freshman year with him. But of course, you know, the weight room makes a difference. Patrick Pyle, however, man, I mean, he coached, you know, 2 USA champions in the high jump, you know, Anika McPherson and Jerome Robinson, you know. So he's doing something right? I mean, don't get me wrong, those people are freaks to begin with, you know, just genetic freaks, of course, but everyone at that level is. So But Patrick introduced a completely new training like style to me, something that I've never experienced with any other coach I've had in my 5-6 coaches since high school. That was really less is more. When you reach a certain level, you don't need to be killing yourself every single day. You know, it was based a lot on European circuit training. So, I mean, I remember the first week with the guy, or first month, I should say, I was like, you know, I talked to my head coach. I'm like, man, we're not doing anything. Like, I feel like I'm doing nothing with this guy. And, you know, he's like, well, you know, he's a great coach. He's like, if you don't like it after your first meet, he's like, let me know. I'll change something. You can train with me. I'm like, that's fine, you know. And I talked to Patrick, and I'm like, coach, like, I feel like we're not doing anything, you know. Like, all we would do is we'd go in there, we'd do some light plyos, you know. Sometimes we would throw some weight on our back, move it really quick, you know, depending on the time of the year. And that was it, you know. And then the rest of the time it was like, just felt like just general warm-ups, you know, some core circuits with some plates, core plate routine, you know. That's what we lived by, just like body weight stuff. And you know, the first meet comes, and you know, I go 220, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, I mean, I felt incredible though, man, because my body was never beat up. I mean, I was never beat up, and I just sat down.
Practice at least?
What's that?
Did you jump in practice at least?
We never jumped over a bar in practice. I never high jumped in practice. It was incredible. All we did was run approaches. All it was approaches. We're gonna do approaches twice a week. That's what he said. Full approaches twice a week. He said you can pop off one day a week. We'd only pop off. The other day I would just kind of glide through the pit. So my body was just feeling incredible. I was never beat up. You know, I mean, sometimes, like, don't get me wrong, my knees and ankles, whenever I was with David Quack, you know, big weight program, I just felt a little lethargic. You know, my CNS was fried a lot of the times because I just wasn't getting that break that I needed. So when, you know, Patrick introduced this to me, and, you know, first meet I come out, I jumped 220 with the guy. I sat down, I just started talking to him, man. He's like, you know, you're at an elite level, Jordy. You know, like, he made me believe in myself. He's like, you can jump 230 right now. You know, I mean, I didn't with him. I attempted 230 twice. I didn't jump 230 with him. I jumped 225. But man, he just made your body just fine tuning. And the best way he explained it was like, you have a drag car. You know, you can't run the drag car 100% all the time. He's like, you can't just go race after race after race. You need to let that drag car, you know, cool down. Otherwise, it's gonna overheat and it's gonna blow up, like, quite literally. He's like, you got to look at your body like that. If you're training 100% all the time, you're gonna get injuries. You don't need to do all that stuff. You're already at an elite level. You don't need to go put 500 pounds on the weight room every single week. You know, just slow down, relax, just believe in yourself, and just stay healthy. You just need to maintain. You know, what we do today isn't going to make you better the rest of the season. He said, if I put 600 pounds on the weight room, so that's not going to make you. It's not going to make you jump any higher this year. You know, he's like, there's a time and place for that. He's like, this is not the time and place for that. So he really made me change my whole concept and idea of training. You know, and the best way I could explain it is sometimes less is 100% more.
It seems like his system was. It's actually really interesting hearing you explain it that way, because I think a lot of people listening to this would be like, oh, don't train. That's how you jump higher. And I think what you need to realize is that Patrick was getting the cream of the crop jumper. Like, he knew, right, you know, oh, this guy already jumps. He already has the vertical to jump this far. And I know that. I don't need to make him better. He's already amazing. All I have to do is keep him fresh and not hurt him, and he'll jump high. And I think oftentimes at the collegiate level, you'll hear coaches say, getting someone to jump 7 foot's easy. If you're recruiting them and they've already jumped it, just keep them healthy, keep them fresh, and they'll jump high. I've heard that so many times. And I think even with the high jumpers at Duke this year, like this one kid, Bo Allen, freshman, he trained too hard. Literally, if Bo just did nothing, came out and high jumped, he probably would jump 7 feet. Yeah. Like, probably would jump higher than 7 feet. So it's like, I don't at all disagree with that. I actually think there's a lot of truth to that. As a 1 foot jumper, your jumping is really sensitive. Now, that said, if I want to go out and touch 11-1 all the time with no training, yeah, I can do that. The problem, I'll probably get fat. That's one thing. If I don't train hard, I'll get fat. Right. So that's one issue. And I know you've talked about that a lot. And I think not me being fat, but that you think weight, you know, and managing your weight is really important. And I think for you, the reason why that is because your volume is so low. So, like, if your volume is so low, it's hard to stay lean. It's hard to have a six-pack all the time if you only go out and train 15 minutes every day or 20 minutes every day.
Yeah, like if I didn't go hard as hell, like, with training, like, I'd probably be a fat blob. So, like, I can afford to eat suboptimally right now and stuff like that. But
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's like one of the big things that I always think about, because you hear that with Europeans, like, eat better. I'm like, no, fuck that. I'm like, I'm not eating better. Like, I want to eat ice cream several times a week, pizza, whatever, all the time. And I'm willing to train harder to be able to do that. And I like training. That's the other thing too. So like, yeah, if I wanted to go out and touch 11.1, 11.2 every day, I know if I drop off volume in the weight room and I do plyos and I sprint and I jump, I'm going to jump high all the time. I know that for a fact. Like, I've trained harder in the last 4 weeks and jumped basically 11 foot, 11.1 consistently the entire time. I know I'm getting fitter because under fatigue, I can go out and touch 11 foot, 11.1 all the time. But like you said, you always feel this little bit of, CNS depression. I can't really get to quite the level that I need to be. But for me, I'm not at a level where I can afford to not train, right? Like, I don't touch 11.8. So the only way for me to learn to touch 11.8 is to get my body to adapt. You know what I mean? And to do that, I need to train a lot. And if I don't train a lot, I also get hurt. On that Just Jump program, dude, I pull my hamstrings, I get fat, I get Achilles tendinopathy, patella tendinopathy. Like, I need the training to hold me together too. So it's like you said, it really does depend on the athlete. You're super resilient. You never get hurt. Your tendons are crazy stiff. Like, if you started running into those problems and then you're plateauing and you're not jumping as high as possible, yeah, okay, let's reevaluate. Let's try to push the limit of what you can do. Like, Isaiah's kind of at that point. If we wanted, we could easily just keep him healthy and have him jumping 46 inches all the time. I think that would be pretty easy for you. We'd really just have him jump consistently and manage the volume. Yeah. But if we're trying to get him to touch 12.2, 12.3, 12.4, we want him to break records. We need to say, here's diminishing returns. I want to bust the fuck through that wall. I don't want to leave any stones unturned. I want to do everything I possibly can, from the ligaments in his ankle to the ligaments in his toes, all the way up through his lower leg, his quads, his hamstrings, his hips, his abs, his lats, his chest, his fucking neck. I don't care, his ears. Whatever. I want everything to be as optimal as it possibly can. So like, yeah, I think when you get to that level and where you're at, I look at it and people have always asked me, what do you, Coach Jordy, do this? I'm like, Jordy, like, they'll say like, well, just jump or whatever, just do what Jordy does. I'm like, you don't understand like the athlete that Jordy is. I'm like he's a completely different animal than you. Like, he's a genetic freak of nature who's jumped his entire life and has crazy stiff tendons. Yes, plyos and sprinting and all those things work for him. But if Jordy wants to go to 235 to 240 to 245, at some point, I mean, would you say that what you're doing right now would probably get you there? Or would you probably need to say, all right, I need to do these things to really...
I'd have to change something. But from a longevity aspect, I always hold that into account, because, yeah, you can train your ass off. Usain Bolt said it himself. I could have trained my ass off, but guess what? If you're injured, you're not competing, you're not making money. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you got to look at the risk and the reward, I mean, if you're training too hard and you can't jump, well, what the fuck's the point? And blatantly said, if you're hurt all the time, well, that's not doing you any good.
Yeah. I think too, like, looking at Isaiah as a prototype for that, because you could make the same argument for Isaiah, right? Like, oh, you can't win contests if you're hurt. It's like, well, yes, actually you can, but but no, I think
Isaiah is a perfect example. Isaiah's a freak. I mean, like, exactly what you said. You could not train Isaiah. He could be healthy as hell, and he could go out and jump 46 inches on average, maybe even.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you train him to death, if you train and you are able to push through that wall without him getting hurt, let's say he can hit 50, 51. But I think, from my perspective, you're taking a risk. You're taking big risk.
I think it's calculated, though, right? Like, because it's like, coaching is risk management at this level. Like, I'm not... Like, yes, he'll push the squats as hard as he can. Like, he squatted 17 pounds heavier in 17 days. I look at that and I'm like, he looks at that, he's like, damn, that's sick. I'm way stronger. Went out, touched 11, and basically touched 12 feet. Probably will touch 12 feet next time he tests. But guess what? He's got posterior tib issues. He's got quad tendinopathy. He's got patella tendinopathy. Well, I'm not having him jump more than 5 or maybe 10, at least what was scheduled, was 10 to 15 times. So it's like, okay, I'm always mitigating the risk, understanding this is my athlete, this is what he's capable of, this is what he can do, this is what his foot is. We're taking out the things we know are high risk. We're adding things in. So, like, I think if you're really trying to push harder, yeah, you're going to have – but there's periods where he doesn't jump high at all, because we're pushing so hard in certain elements that we're willing to take – okay, let's not jump for a little bit because we're going to do more plyos. Or let's not do all out dunk sessions because we want to push the squats up and we know your knee can't handle that. So it's like being able to add and take away elements at certain times of the year. And then, yeah, he comes into the contest year. Guess what? We don't really lift heavy. Like, how often do we really lift hard in the summer when you're having contests every single week or every other week?
It's basically just the deload. Lift once a week. And, like, I mean, we keep the intensity pretty high. Because I jump well when I'm, like,
strong.
Like, when I'm strong.
Yeah.
So, like, if I lift once a week, not a lot of volume, maybe, like, 2-3 reps, high weight, and just keep it at that.
A lot of prehab, too. There's a lot of, like, hey,
that's what my training is prehab.
It's basically prehab. And that's, I think, what for you is like the argument that you make for it is I want to jump high all the time and I'm jumping high from jumping high and I'll just do prehab and I'll be good. And I think, it's like, I think personally with your training is that if you wanted to go to that next level, if you wanted to hit 235 and 240, maybe you could keep doing the prehab jump program, which is what you're doing, which is just, hey, stay healthy and jump all the time and sprint and do some plyos. And plyos are self-intensifying. The better you are at them, the better they are as a stimulus. Maybe you will go out and jump higher just by doing that with really low volume. But I would argue, let's cycle this more appropriately. Let's have a cycle where you suck at jumping, you get really strong, and then we'll pull all that shit away and we'll let you go back to the prehab jump program. And so like, I think obviously that's what you did in college and stuff like that. Like Patrick said, there's a time and a place for it. If you're a collegian and you already jumped 225 and you want to score points at nationals or you want to score points at your conference meet, yeah, you don't really need to get any better. Like, you just need to be able to jump consistently. So that makes sense to me. Or if you're the female jumper that what's her name again?
Saida?
Yeah. She she's another one. She already is one of the best in the world. So like, just get her jumping and keep her healthy, and yeah, she's probably gonna go out and win gold at trials or whatever she did. Like, so yeah.
What about Anika?
Anika. That's what I'm
about. My bad. Sorry. Yep.
Yeah, no, I think like you looking at that as a kind of archetype for it. Yeah, everyone's different. Everyone has a different thing that makes them good and stuff like that. And if you're trying to really improve when you're at that elite level, though, personally, I like to push the brink of it, and I like my athletes to believe in the program and know that it's also going to keep them safe. Like that's really what it comes down to too. Is does your athlete trust you enough that they are willing to give up their freedom, maybe in a sense of saying, I do want to do this, or I don't want to do this, or I think I know best, to be able to trust you to say, okay, this coach, or if I'm the person that's writing the training, I can make you healthy, keep you healthy, and get you better all at the same time. Like, the athlete in a sense has to give up some autonomy to be willing to do that. And that's hard for people. But I think like for Isaiah, that trust has been built, and it's not like we don't work together. Early on, yeah, there was basically no autonomy, right? Like, you just kind of did what was on the piece of paper.
Yeah.
And I think and he still gave me feedback and stuff like that, don't get me wrong, to do my job better. But yeah, I think that's kind of my perspective on it as a whole. When you start looking at getting elite athletes better, that's hard to do. How do you take Usain Bolt and make him run 9:55?
Exactly.
You do it by not training. But again, Usain Bolt also is lazy as shit and doesn't really desire to run. He's like, I'm okay winning. He's like, I'm okay with what I did.
No, I understand what you're saying 100%. It just, yeah, I mean, I think Usain Bolt's it is a good example, because he was from what I've seen, I don't know him personally, obviously, what I've seen and heard from his coach even, he could have ran faster. His coach said it himself. He's like, Usain Bolt would have trained harder. He would have ran faster. My only question is, well, what if he would have got hurt doing so, And that's always a possibility.
Honestly, that's where good coaching comes in, and not using drugs. And that's hard. That's really hard to do. And especially with elite sprinters. Elite sprinters is another level. I mean, Mutaz, you look at Mutaz, dude. Mutaz blew out his ankle, dude. His goal is not to break the world record right now, I bet. His goal is like, I'm trying to make it through my career without my ankle exploding again, trying to break the world record.
That was hard to watch.
And sad. But anyways, Jordy, that is an hour and 10 minutes. We are well past our time. You got to literally right now. But bro, thanks for coming on the show. If you guys are listening, make sure you subscribe, and to the podcast, make sure you like the episode, give it 5 stars. If you're on YouTube, like it, comment. If you have questions for Jordy, put it in the comment section. I'll tell Jordy to look at it and answer them later, or I'll do my best to answer them as well. Jordy, when are you going to be a THPStrength athlete? We're wondering, how can we help you get your balance to another level. Like we're dying to do it. Just let us say the word and we're there.
I'm ready, man. Seriously, I do want to try something new, man. Because like you said, man, I think you said it really well. You know, I've been maintaining, and I'm very lucky. I think that's part of the training. I haven't gotten hurt. But, you know, you got to take a risk to get the reward. And, you know, next year's my last season. It's the Olympic trials. And, I mean, let's go out there and do it. No, for real.
Oh, hell yeah. No, but no, seriously, if you're ever willing, you know, we would love to do that. And, like, we want to try to get you to that next level freaky. And obviously, like, we would work with you and we wouldn't just blow you up. So if you're a listener and you're thinking about THPStrength, that's obviously something that we prioritize, is like your feedback and working with you. But anyways, guys, yeah, thanks for listening. Again, do all those things I talked about, and we'll catch you next time. Peace out, guys. Peace.